Hello, everyone, and welcome back once more. Now, we've got a bit of an interesting one today for you. At least I hope you find it interesting. One or two of you may find it a tad challenging, but we certainly don't intend it that way, do we, Felix? But there has been, or you will see some talk of what's called the New Age hijack out there. And what this basically means is that there are certain modalities, things that are very uh, front and center in the new age that really won't be working in the space that we're moving to and have been used in the past, possibly by fallen races for things that are not necessarily for the best benefit for us. But you know, there is a perspective on this that is really important to bear in mind, and that's that we have all been living up until relatively recently. And when I say relatively recently, I'm talking about the last few years, in what is called a base 10. I was going to say universe, but certainly this area of the universe had a base, what's called a base 10 math imposed on it, which means the basic templating of this area of our universe, including our planet and our bodies. The base templating was twisted long ago from an organic base 12 math energetic
Configuration.
energetic architecture into a base 10. And that's had big consequences. It's had consequences on us, on the planet, on everything that lives on the planet. And we've been living in that space and that environment for a long time. And as a consequence, certain things have been our truth within that space. We are now moving back to our true organic architecture, which is the base 12. And as a consequence, all of these foundations that were right here are shifting and changing, and I'm sure you're feeling it. And we're moving back into who we truly are, if I'm honest with you. But you know, there are things as a consequence that are going to change, and what was right right here isn't necessarily going to be right there. So we've all of us got to be very open to the fact that things we thought were gospel and we took on board here aren't necessarily going to work here because we're in a different environment, basically. And a pattern or an energetic archetype here needs to evolve back into its true form here. I hope I'm not I'm trying to be very careful because it's a very triggering subject. I'm trying to be very careful in the way I express things, and I hope I'm achieving it. On that note, I'll hand over to you, Felix, and we'll see where we go.
Okay, yeah. So to start off with the base 10 architecture, it's basically an energetic artificial morphogenetic field template, which arranges consciousness from which was in a 12-dimensional scale down to a 10-dimensional scale. So it's restricting out to key dimensions. So we're looking at the 12th, we're looking at the fourth, well, maybe not the fourth really, but which one would you say was
Eighth,
the other one?
it's the
The
eighth.
eighth, the
Yeah,
eighth one.
yeah,
Okay.
the kind of
So
central one on the tree. Mm.
yeah, yeah. So those the reasons why these two have been taken out is number 12, it runs the divine blueprint, and they've never managed to hijack into that.
Mm.
And number 8 is because of the permanent seed atom, the galactic core. Um,
Mm.
so all of this is like a hub configuration that kind of runs an organic circuitry and holds the solar rod principle at the 8th as well. So this governs all of the mental bodies. And if they can kind of get into that, it then overthrows the awareness of the masculine mental body, which then distorts the whole rest of the system basically.
Mm.
So it doesn't have a kind of clean flow of information, and it restricts the higher heart consciousness, the higher heart
Yeah. Mm.
communication. So within this structure, the base 10 basically operates on a kind of lunar reversal system that is heavily tied in. It is artificial intelligence, it is an
Mm.
artificial machinery structure, that kind of needs to it pulls on your loosh, your harvested energy to feed it. And through that, multiple things have to be kind of put in place to control the consciousness of humanity, and that then runs a feeding system back into the base 10. And then that goes into a kind of another universe that ultimately kind of absorbs it and then churns out more crap back into this universe. So it keeps it on what's called a closed loop system. And this closed loop system basically recirculates trauma over and over again, and it will use things like holographic inserts to interject into the consciousness of the individual and into humanity to overthrow the awareness and keep it in fear. Now, one of the tactics done within this, as people have gone into the evolution of consciousness from third to fifth, is through the fourth, which is the kind of the process of healing and integration, compartmentalization, is all of the areas, not all of the areas, but the majority of the areas within kind of getting into crystals, getting into healing and things like that, is they put in play consciousness traps that may not necessarily be in the physical realm, but they are attached to the physical realm, because the fourth is a semi-physical realm anyway.
And it's often called the lower astral, isn't it? The lower subharmonics of the fourth dimension,
yeah,
often referred to as the lower astral.
yeah. So within this location, basically what has gone on is they've got these kind of we'll call them, you can look at this from different perspectives. So from one perspective, it is you're going through an evolutionary trajectory to kind of experience and learn and like co-create with crystals or whatever, or other things. And there's nothing wrong with crystals whatsoever. It's just learning the tools and understanding other parts that kind of interlink within it.
Yeah, I mean, because crystals are a high consciousness, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So on an evolutionary perspective, it's a very organic flow to go into the new age and go into kind of spirituality, which everyone should do, really, I guess, in order to kind of come into a unified form. So this is a field of healing. It's a field of kind of exploration of the higher consciousness, or the lower part of the higher consciousness. And through that layer, because there is not as stronger awareness as we're stepping out of third of polarity into a fourth, which is an exploration of all kind of areas in order to unify at the fifth. This area has been heavily hijacked. And that is basically kind of keeping people in I want to say like kind of keeping them in kind of like consciousness cages where they're kind of looping through the same things, and then within that
consciousness loops, it just keeps round and round rather than evolving up and out. You just keep going around the same.
Keep going round and round. And because when you're going into that space and you're getting the kind of sentient buzz that comes from the healing or the kind of decompression, it feels like this is kind of what's needed without the kind of stepping up into the next tier or the next level. So as you kind of go through this structure, it becomes slightly addictive, I would say, because of the kind of the wellness buzz. And then it kind of, you get your hit and then you just keep coming back round and being renewed and restored, and then never really kind of going anywhere or doing anything with it until you kind of start thinking yourself out of it. Now, that's all perfectly fine and okay. That if that's what you are wanting to do, that's absolutely okay. There is no qualms with that, but it's just about kind of opening the perspective. Okay, well, what is the next step beyond that? How can you kind of get yourself, that in and of itself is the evolutionary trajectory. And within evolution, we do hit up against brick walls in order to unfold and unravel the thought forms in order to find the next phasing out. And sometimes it can be quite restrictive in order to kind of exit the loop, I would say. So really these kind of new age hijacks, sorry, aim to keep the consciousness lower down and suppressed in the lower astral, giving the illusion of evolution and kind of
Yeah.
evolving. But really, it's kind of,
Yeah,
yeah,
I tend
it's
to think of it as
much doing that.
it's like a dimensional glass ceiling. I mean, basically, they haven't want us to evolve beyond the
Mm,
third dimension
hmm
and evolve our consciousness up into the next density levels,
hmm
because we become much harder to control when that happens, because
mm,
yeah, we have a more expanded consciousness and we can see things we couldn't see from the third dimensional level. So
hmm
if you're kept bouncing against this glass ceiling, with a bit of feel good thrown in to make you think
hmm
you really are doing something and really are going somewhere,
mm.
then
Which to
again,
some degree you are as well. Sorry
it's a
to interject there.
manipulation. It's a manipulation mechanism,
Mm,
and as things evolve, as the energies open up, our ability to see this um, increases. So, I mean, in some ways, I think what we're really doing here is just giving a heads up, saying, hey, there is this going on. It is a real thing. It doesn't mean that everything in the new age is trash and is wrong. You need to use very clear discernment about what you give your energy to, what you put your energy into. And this really comes back, people say to me, well, how would you do that? But it sits within you, doesn't it, Felix?
mm,
Your vibration, and if you're kind of working well with your energy body and you're kind of clearing out the AI, you're clearing out the dissonance, then it is about making sure that whatever you plug into is in resonance with yourself. And occasionally it may be that you get it wrong. I mean, I can't tell you. I've been doing this a long time. I've gone up quite a few garden paths that, I look at and think, bloody hell, I wish I hadn't. But yeah, from my perspective now, I can see where teachings I was given or whatever were wrong, and were designed to
mm,
mislead, not by the person giving me that teaching. That person was speaking with good intent, but
hmm
how something had been twisted, so that it wasn't
mm,
aligned with organic energy current, shall we say.
mm,
And as Felix has said, that's the learning process,
mm,
where we kind of, as we develop our ability to really tell truth from lies, which is a frequency. It's a frequency we feel into. We have to be prepared to look at what's gone before and say, that was good. Maybe that isn't. I'll put that one down, or I'll take the truth from that and I'll leave the rest of it that doesn't feel right behind me, as it were, as you go forwards. Um, yeah, it's a process of evolving and learning. And I've used this phrase before, updating the program, because we are
mm,
moving into a different energetic space. And as a consequence, what held true in one energetic space doesn't necessarily hold true
mm,
in the new one. And the new one is, it is back to our true organic templating. It is letting go really what has been the nightmare of the last sort of 20 plus thousand years of fallen race domination.
mm,
We've been in a bad space. We're moving out of it. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And I think all of this is taking the stress of the word hijack out of the equation here. All of this is just an invitation to evolve, and
Yeah.
that's really like the kind of the cusp of it. No one's kind of saying you must do this, you must do that. It's an invitation to kind of just think slightly outside of the box. Okay, so as an example there, you go for some angelic Reiki. This feels really good. Okay, what can I do to do this for myself?
Mm.
Okay, then you work into understanding how to process your own information. And instead of then going to rely on somebody else to do it for you, you're then able to self sustain. And that is the evolutionary pathway. You're becoming a self sustaining conduit of source frequency to rehabilitate your own energetic system. And this is the kind of the key within it. It's they always put out the feelers. It feels really good to go to these events because it's a wellness thing. It's kind of there's mysticism behind it. It's the unknown. Um, why do we need to go outside of ourselves to go and get that when it all kind of sits within us anyway? So these invitations of discernment, these invitations of kind of developing sentient abilities or clairvoyance or whatever, everybody has this within them anyway. And as we kind of move up the dimensional scale, it becomes the kind of the go-to to read your environment rather than reading it from a book or rather than listening to me on a podcast with Saira. It's about you kind of doing it for you.
Yeah.
Because
And
everybody,
most of us have got to get our confidence back at that level. We've had it severely trashed, and when people have listened to themselves and have said something, they've possibly been ridiculed and not listened to, or don't be so stupid. I mean, we've all been exposed to that
oh
at that
yeah.
level. Yeah, but again, we're moving into a space now where the ability to access that with clarity, those skills, those gifts which are inherent to our template, um, are opening up once more. And we just need to trust it now. We've had trust severely trashed at that level, and we've been trained. Make no mistake about it. We have been trained to give our power outside ourselves, and this is a process of taking it back. And of trusting yourself and trusting the way your body reads the fields and the information it gives you. And it's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I think
I'm good with that. Yeah.
we're not going to go into any detail on this because it isn't about scaring you or anything like that. It's just saying heads up. Heads up that, there are some problems. Trust yourself. Find some sources that you trust in the process of the learning, the relearning of who you are. Find some sources that you trust to guide you, but never, never, never. I mean, it doesn't matter what we say. Never, never, never take it as gospel. Always check in, and if it doesn't resonate with you, leave it at the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes even within certain parts of the kind of some of the teachings that you may come across as well that others may perceive as distortion, there will still be a bit of truth that your soul might need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you go through an organic process with your internal guidance navigation that will pull you to the things that you need until you've got the information, until you understand it, then you start moving away anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it is a natural process that the soul kind of takes over as well. So yeah. Awesome. Okay then, guys, thanks so much for watching. It was lovely to chat with you today. Loads of love.